Let's talk about what's coming next with Joe Allen, transhumanist editor at Bannon's War Room. Joe, how are you, brother? Good to talk to you again.
Very good. Good to be here. Thank you very much.
So we're talking about this rise of Silicon Valley. Will there be a fall? Yes, no, but it'll definitely be different, and something's going to have to rise from the ashes of, or be the next iteration, generation of what it. So what is next?
Well, Mike, the Silicon Valley has definitely taken a lot of hit on their stock prices, and they're laying off people left and right. I think that's an indication of a huge shift. There are also a number of startups that I think will undoubtedly make an impact on the landscape of technology. But really, realistically, Silicon Valley still has the real power in technology. So you see just one example, Microsoft picking up OpenAI's GPT. They invested $10 billion. GPT is being integrated into Bing, into other Microsoft products. Just yesterday, Bill Gates, on his Gates Notes, announced what he believes the age of AI is beginning. And that phrase gets thrown around a lot. Eric Schmidt, former CEO of Google, used that for the title of his book. And what he means by beginning now, I mean, artificial intelligence, the idea was really conceived in the 50s, and the word was coined in 56. What he means is that with GPT technology, you now have a system that is extremely powerful in its ability to kind of quote unquote reason and deliver coherent answers. It's a technology that relies on natural language processing, meaning that now the interface with technology will be more reliant on natural language so that humans will be much more comfortable interacting with it. And maybe the biggest impact will be because of people like Gates and because of all these other companies pouring their money into large language models and deploying them. One of the biggest impacts, if not the biggest impact, will be education. Children who are already being trained to rely on technology for so many different things, and an education system that is already shifting towards e-learning will now be flooded with these sort of AI buddies, right? In the transhumanist literature, it's oftentimes described in terms of a sort of guardian angel or a sort of just a personal companion or a co-pilot.
Wow.
And the idea is that if you are now, let's say, 50 or 60 years old, going forward, say 2 or 3 years from now, or maybe immediately going forward, you will then be able to turn to your AI for help recommendations or just to answer questions about this increasingly confusing world. If you're 5, then you will have an AI companion or a group of AI companions that go with you through the rest of your life. So all of big tech has put its stamp on this. Microsoft with GPT. You also have Google with Lambda, or Bard as it's known. Google also is investing in a startup, Anthropic, with a chatbot called Claude. You now have Meta moving much of their attention over to artificial intelligence. They have a number of systems. There is Llama, there's Chinchilla, and others. And just if we can pause there for 1 second, something that's really important in this whole spectrum of technology is biotechnology. And Salesforce and Meta's natural language processing systems have shown the ability to read DNA and predict the protein structure, the resulting protein structures, right? Meaning that, the sort of idea that altering DNA or messing with DNA or tracking DNA is working with the language of life. Well, now you're adding these AI systems on top of that, right? So that AI is now able to sort of speak and edit, to rewrite the language of life. And then you have other companies, Baidu in China with their Ernie bot. You have Elon Musk, who's now pushing to create, I think he calls it right now anyway, Truth GPT, or a sort of based AI to combat woke AI. And then, of course, the social media group Gab with their Christian nationalist, non-woke AI that they're developing now, Gabby. So all this is to say, what's the future of technology? I could go in any given direction with biotechnology or with robotic, just general automation or artificial intelligence. All of those obviously are going to keep improving. And to the extent that human beings adopt them, whether they be business owners or government or just consumers, they are going to keep moving forward. But I really do think that even looking beyond the hype, and there's a ton of hype about these large language models, looking beyond the hype, I think that those are going to undoubtedly make huge impacts in society. The reason I say that,
and then,
sorry.
finish that thought. Finish that thought.
The reason I say that is that you have two major factors. One, you have huge public interest and a large willingness to engage these among people, a lot of people who normally wouldn't have any interest in AI at all. But maybe the biggest reason is that you have corporations that will partner with governments through the education system and other institutions. You are going to have tons of capital poured into this. So whether or not consumers want it, it's still going to be pushed in our faces. So I really do think that in the immediate future, this is going to have enormous impacts, like it or not.
So good. So terrible. I think of these AI buddies, and it's like, okay, that's scary, but the question is who controls the AI? Who writes the AI that we're all plugging into? Who controls the matrix that we're writing, that we're dependent on now for everything? That's the main concern. But let me ask you this. Let's say all this works. So 10, 20 years, however, in the future. And I've got about a minute. I hate to do this to you, but how does artificial intelligence change how we think? So I grew up in a Google era. Google changed how I think. It changes how I process information. When I'm searching for something, I think about, and I think like in terms of what Google would want me to think in order to find the thing I'm looking for. So it's changed my brain. How does artificial intelligence change the human brain?
There are a lot of different ways, but beyond the sort of sci-fi scenarios of brain implants and all that, which may not be sci-fi for much longer, the real impact, I think, is that it does your reasoning for you. Search engines, I think, have had a profound effect on the immediate ability to gain information, right? To find information. And that's been very useful on one hand. It's also made people very, very lazy, very, very forgetful, and very, very shallow in their thinking. But at least when you're searching on Google, you are going then to web pages, papers, articles that human beings have written, and you're sorting through them on your own if you have any sort of diligence whatsoever. The difference with AI buddies, right, these AI guardian angels to which you will turn for educational, moral, or spiritual questions is that it does your reasoning for you. And people say, oh, well, that's just going to be, it's just like asking a human. No, it's not, for two reasons. One, it's just purely synthetic reasoning, and it's not true reasoning anyway. But as you just said, the people in charge of these systems will determine which directions those answers go, right? That you're asking it. The thing about AI that's amazing, it's not like they're programming the answers. They just simply choose what data it's being trained on. But once it has been trained, even if it is trained in a balanced fashion, as we saw with ChatGPT, you can then go in and change the safety layers or other parameters to then narrow the responses to what you desire. I really do think, Mike, that with the introduction of AI buddies into the educational system and bringing up a generation to learn from AI, this most likely will be one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful, brainwashing tools that has ever been unleashed by either a capitalist free market society or in China and other places at more totalitarian regimes.
No question. Every tyrant in history would have loved this tool in their toolbox. Joe Allen from the War Room podcast, the Transhumanist editor. Joe, let's talk again frequently. Thank you, brother.
Thank you very much.
Man, I'm grateful for you. We all know that we've outsourced part of our brain to the internet. We're more forgetful than usual, right? We know that. Now imagine we outsource the reasoning ability of our brain, and then we outsource our soul to go with it. Horrific. Can we please be careful? Can we please think, right? Just because there's a new technology doesn't mean it's a gift from God, that we should just use unquestionably. Oh, an iPad's a new thing? Great, let's give it to all of our children. Let's spend $1 billion and give this new thing to all of our kids. It'll be great. It's like, no, think. Whenever there's a new technology, we embrace it with this thoughtless enthusiasm. Like, oh, a Nest thermostat, how convenient. And then a couple years later, the government's controlling your thermostat because of global warming. We got to use our brain before AI takes it away from us. Let's assume the worst about technology and start from there. Hey, thanks for watching that clip from our special Big Tech Revolution. We talk about the rise and potential fall of big tech and how big tech started and where they are now, where they're going, and all that good stuff. And you can watch that on the First TV app, available in the App Store. Also, our podcast, Politics by Faith, because all this big tech and transhumanism and computer chips in your brain kind of stuff, it's anxiety creating, no question. What's next with that? How do we work with that? How do we raise our kids in this new big tech world where everything is different? That's the kind of things we talk about in our podcast, Politics by Faith, where we take a thing that causes anxiety that's in the news, and then we give some historical perspective and biblical piece to help that anxiety go away. Because I don't want to be living with anxiety. I want to be able to sleep at night. And I want to wake up refreshed, clear-eyed, ready to take on the day with wisdom and clear thinking. So that's the purpose of our podcast, and you can listen to that anywhere you listen to podcasts. It's called Politics by